Hi kids, it's Mrs. Fravel. How are you? Good to hear. Me too. Hey, we're gonna talk about Phylum Mollusca now. Woo! One of my favorites because I happen to have a lot of these dead bodies, and you'll be playing with them in class. So what animals are we talking about? We're talking about a group of animals that includes snails and slugs, which are gastropods, all of the bivalves, which are animals that have two shells, those are clams, scallops, mussels, oysters, scaphopoda, which are tusk shells, and cephalopods, which are, woohoo, octopus, squid, cuttlefish, and chambered nautilus, which are also really cool. And then these are three other groups that we are not going to talk about: Neomenomorpha, Chaetodermomorpha, sounds right, and then Polyplacophora, which are actually kind of cool. These are a little more of the more simple classes. We're just going to focus on Cephalopoda, Bivalvia, I can say it, and Gastropoda for this, okay? So you should be taking notes, and here we go. So what are the characteristics of Phylum Mollusca? If you find an animal that has these things, it's probably a mollusk. They have a soft body with bilateral symmetry. That means you can cut them in half. And they have a structure called a siphon. They also have a mantle. They have a muscular foot structure, and that looks different in every class, along with the radula. Okay, if you don't know what a siphon, mantle, muscular foot, and radula are, good thing I'm going to go through them in just a sec. So make sure you know these. These characteristics are what you need to have on your Prezi. Don't go Googling characteristics of Phylum Mollusca because it's going to have stuff that I don't want on your, I don't need you to know, okay? Okay. They have specific physiologies that are different from the groups that we've looked at so far. These guys are higher up on the evolutionary lineage. They have been around for a long time, but they are a little more complicated in some of their morphologies, anatomies, and physiologies. So these guys have a complete digestive system, and they also have a coelom. So they've got a space in their body between their digestive tube and their body wall, and that contains their organs, and they do have organ systems. They are sexually dioecious or monoecious. There are some groups that can do both male and female in one body. They do have cephalization. They have heads, and they have pretty well developed ganglia, especially in the cephalopods, except for bivalves. Bivalves don't have heads. These guys have a 2 to 3 chambered heart. They have an open or closed circulatory system, depending on the class, and they use gills for respiration, unless they are a land snail, like the ones that you probably have in your yards and your gardens. They have really primitive, longish, gill-ish, longish structures. Okay. The mantle. Now we'll get into some of those morphological and anatomical structures that really define this phylum. A mantle. So what is that? This is a layer of tissue that surrounds the internal organs of the mollusk. We call this the mantle cavity. We also call it the where their visceral mass is kept. So you kind of have a visceral mass. That's your internal organs, your digestive organs, and other organs contained in that coelom. So these guys keep theirs inside of a mantle cavity for the most part. The mantle also, on the outside surface of it, it secretes their shell. So for gastropods, like snails that have that external shell, the mantle is kind of the layer between their visceral mass, all of their guts, and their shell, and it secretes that calcium carbonate shell. Same with, so that's a gastropod, Same with bivalves. And when we do the shell lab next week, you get to play with shells. You'll be looking at the scars that mantles leave behind that you can see as they build those shells. A mantle also is what will create pearls in the shell. Okay, all right. What's a siphon? That is a tube that squirts stuff. It's a tube-like structure coming out of their mantle cavity. It's used to exchange respiratory gases and liquids. That it also, in some class, depending on the class, it can be used for breathing, locomotion. So in the cephalopods, especially, their siphon is used for jet power. Phew! And they also, in bivalves, they'll use their siphon for feeding, in that they will draw water into their body across their mantle cavity and extract food from that. And then also reproduction. They release their release their larvae and their eggs through their siphon. And also males will insert their spermatophores through the female siphon. Okay? Siphon's part of the mantle, and the water flow is directed across and throughout the mantle cavity. Okay? So here's what some siphons look like. This is the siphon of a large-ish volute snail. So this is the shell. This big thing is its foot, and then this tube sticks out over its head, and that is its siphon. And it just depends on the species of snail where their siphons are. Some of them it's kind of comes out on the side of their head, but some of them have really long ones coming out right out at the top. In bivalves, they generally have two siphons. They have an in-current siphon and an ex-current siphon. This was a picture I took of little teeny tiny wedge clam sitting at low tide in just a little brush of water, just pumping water in and out, in and out, in and out. And then this is a larger clam. You can see that's got two siphons. One in, one out. And then, of course, we have the cephalopods. They've got that nice big siphon that usually is located under their head, lower part of their head, depending on the species. And again, they use that to propel themselves with a jet-like manner. Pretty cool. Okay. Oh, look, I forgot it has circles, so there we go. That's a siphon. Got it? Wow, I love it when I don't remember what I've done on a presentation. What's a radula? Radulas are kind of cool little structures for feeding. They are like a tongue with teeth on it. It's used to scrape or grind up or chew and move food into their mouth. So it's like a tongue with tiny tooth-like structures on it. Again, it varies by class. It doesn't exist in bivalves because they don't have that head, but they eat a little differently without a head. And then we do have it modified into a beak-like structure in cephalopods. Okay? So in cephalopods, again, the cephalopods have these nice, beautiful arms, and on the underside, tucked up between all those arms, is their mouth and their beak. So their radula is this kind of scrapey tongue-like structure at the opening of their mouth, and then it's surrounded by these beak-like structures. Okay? And then this little guy, this is one of my snails in my saltwater tank. This is a star turbo snail, sometimes called a ninja star snail, and he was very happily scraping the algae off the glass in my tank one day. You can see he does a decent job. He's super cute. But you can see that little tongue-like structure come out, and it's actually like a fingernail almost in their mouth, a little chitinous structure. Very cute. So when we talk about snails eating algae or eating leaves, that's what they're using, is that little tooth. If you've ever held a land snail, which you probably shouldn't because they're full of bacteria, but if you ever get up close to a little land snail, sometimes you look at their face, you can see their radula tucked up in their mouth. Very cute. Okay. And their nervous systems are a little better, a little more well developed than in the other groups we've looked at. They've got very focused ganglia. So in a bivalve, again, they don't have heads, but they've got a few ganglia that coordinate and run their body systems. Gastropods, like snails and slugs that actually run around on their muscular foot, which I'll talk about in a minute. they have this more coordinated nerve cord action. And then cephalopods, super crazy smart, especially the octopods, like we saw in the movie that we watched. These guys have a brain. They have several ganglia, so several brains throughout their body. And then each of their arms generally also has its own separate ganglia. So we're learning a lot more about cephalopod intellect, and their brains are structurally so completely different from ours and from other vertebrates that it was always assumed that they weren't very smart because their brains are tiny and there's more than one of them, and they don't have a lot of folds like our brains do. And observing their problem solving skills and their play, it looks like they're, again, a lot smarter than we thought. Sorry, I'm just going to turn off my heater. I just realized that was loud. I'm yelling over it. I have so many fans running in this room right now. Okay. Whew. Anywho. Okay. And we have some nice eyeball action on this. And it, again, there is a wide range of eyes, functionality and presence through this phylum. Some snails, this is a conch. Look at the eyes on that. Those are almost an eyeball. They are so adorable, I think. Bivalves generally don't have eyes, but they do have light sensing cells. But when we look at a scallop, they have this row of beautiful bright blue eyes inside their shell. They can have like 100 or 200 little eyes. And they're not quite eyeballs, but they're better than light sensing cells. So really kind of cool. And then of course snails on their little tentacles on their face tentacles. They've got little eye spots as well. And again, some of them are better than others. But then the cephalopods, we get a complex eyeball with adjustable iris and pupil. These eyes evolved completely separately from vertebrate eyes like ours, so it's amazing. Their structure is really similar, but their pupils are different. Cuttlefish have this W-shaped pupil, and they can see really well, but they can't see color, which is interesting because they change color themselves. I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. Whew. I'm going to go ahead and skip on through because, again, the COVID year has shortened us down. So I'm going to cram physiology, morphology, which is what I just did, and taxonomy into one group, but I need to go grab some stuff. So I'm going to pause, you take a breath. I'll be right back. Okay. All right. I'm back. We had a good break there. Okay. So taxonomy, let's talk about the classes of mollusks now. Okay. All right. What are they? So first one, class Bivalvia. Oh boy, I forgot to underline what you need to know for characteristics. So here's what you should write down and what you need to know. Class Bivalvia, these are mollusks that have a soft body enclosed between two valves. And valves is the technical term for shelves. Shells, not shelves. Oh, you know what? I forgot to grab a whole one. So I'm going to pause right here really quickly. Be right back again. Yep, I'm fine. I'm doing great. It's fine. Okay, so usually in class I would be throwing shells at you and having you play with them. So again, soft body enclosed between two valves or shells. So this is an example of a bivalve. This is a shell from a Maxima clam. And you can see when it was alive, it would be on the sessile surface of the ocean here, and it has the soft body in between the two shells. Okay? Generally, when they are alive, their shells don't open very wide. They've got some musculature in there that keeps them closed up, and they'll open just enough so that their siphons can come out, so they can suck water in and out. And then for clams that move, which I'll show you in a minute, they have their foot comes right out the front, and I'll talk about their foot. They use that big muscular foot to dig into the sand at the bottom of the ocean, or if they are a scallop, which is these This is a scallop shell. Now, generally, when you find seashells that are bivalves, you only find one. You very rarely find both of them still together, because when the animal dies, those shells are only held together by tendons and ligaments. So once the body dies and all of the meat is scavenged or decomposed, the shells just naturally dissociate. They get tumbled, and you almost never find them together. Scallops are the free swimming example of a bivalve. I'll show you a video guide of these guys, and you can identify scallops because they've got these little ear flaps on the hinge of their shell. Okay, these guys have gills that so all you need to put is use muscular foot to dig in mud or sand. Their gills have cilia on them, and they pull water in through their in-current siphon. So just that first sentence is all you want to make sure that you know, okay? Water moves across their whole body, and it aerates their gills. They do gas exchange in their gills, and then moves the water into, and the gills actually trap their food, move that food into their mouth. We'll do a mollusk lab next week where you'll play with these shells, and I'll also have some live clams that you can watch them work. Okay, there's a video. I'm going to link all of the videos that are coming up. I'm going to link them under this one on the Canvas page, so make sure you watch them, make sure you take notes from them. Okay, what else? Let's talk about pearls. Oh, I don't have any pearls. Darn it. But I do have this. So nacre is what lines the inside of their shell. And again, their shell is created by the mantle tissue. And nacre is the organic / inorganic material that lines the inside of their shell. And this is what makes pearls. Pearls they're like an immune response for the animal. If it gets an irritation in the mantle, in between the mantle and the shell, it's usually either detritus or bacterial infection. The animal will respond, and the mantle will produce way more nacre and encapsulate whatever's causing that inflammatory response. I don't know if you guys can see the way. So this is an abalone. This is technically a gastropod, but so any mollusk with a shell can technically make a pearl. We mostly get them from oysters, which this is an oyster that I ate on a beach in Costa Rica. So again, the nacre layer is this inner part of the shell that makes a pearl. There's a video about how they do that there, and I'll link it under here on Canvas. This is a bivalve's internal anatomy. I'm sorry, I didn't attribute my things on here. I'm terrible. But inside of these soft shells, okay, inside of the hard shells, we have this soft body. I'm going to turn it the right way. So they have their dorsal side and their ventral side. Is that right? Ventral, dorsal, and then their the opening of their shell is where their foot comes out. So that's here. And then in their visceral mass, and their body doesn't look like that inside. You can't see their guts. They've got this mass of tissue, their body. And then if you cut that open, you can see all of their internal organs. You generally can see their gills laying on top of the visceral mass as well. And then they've got these adductor muscles that hold their shell closed. And if you've ever eaten fresh clams and you have to stick in a knife and cut them open, you're cutting those muscles. Okay? All right, let's watch them move, shall we? Did you know that clams move like this? And so that right there, that is the muscular foot. And clams will use that to bury themselves. He's having a hard time. Usually they're faster than that. They can be super fast. So in the ocean, when you see waves come in and then you see waves go out and you see all the little bubbles coming up through the sand, a lot of times that is actually clams that live under the surface, and they have kind of come up and sunk down. And they are also pulling in water and letting out bubbles while they're while the well, the wave's going. Look, there's his siphon right there. So he's pushing things, using that foot to dig himself down. Okay? Go, little buddy. If you've never seen one, a good one to Google is the gooey duck clam, and that's spelled Geo duck. Be prepared, it's a little gross, but they are huge. They have huge siphons, great big foot. Okay? And then scallops, again, they are free swimming, so they don't have that digging foot, but they I love them. Look how cute they are. Zoom. So they will use the pressure in their from closing their valves to swim. Okay? And they get going. They'll like swim across in the open water. They're pretty cool. Okay. Well, yep. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that, but look at them go. Go, little bivalves, go. So class bivalvia. And then we do have other examples of bivalves like oysters and mussels that are sessile. They attach to a substrate and they grow in these big colonies, and they don't dig or move around. They don't have the big muscular foot. Okay. Okay. Whew. Second class. Class gastropoda. Gastropoda means literally stomach foot, and that is what these guys run around on. Their muscular foot is where we think of like your stomach would be. It's below their visceral mass. Most of them have one shell. Slugs and nudibranchs are shell-less. But most gastropods, they have one single shell. The soft body is contained within it. It grows around their body, and their little heads and bodies stick out the opening, which is called the operculum. They have a single coiled shell. It sits above the visceral mass, foot below the visceral mass. I'm going to gesture. I should do it where the camera can see. Okay, and their radula is used for grazing. Scrape, 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 scrape. There are predatory snails as well that will hunt other snails and all kinds of stuff. So this is a big family. We get snails again, snail. Look at that beautiful shell. So long. And snail. Quite large. This is an ocean-going snail. And also conchs. This guy right there. I did not grab the queen conch shell. You'll have to come to school and see it sometime. And abalone as well. So abalone shells are interesting. Abalone look like they should be a bivalve, but they aren't. They are a gastropod. So they have this single shell, and the coil, it's just that the body whorl, and we'll talk about shell anatomy next time, where their body whorl sits inside this great, their soft body sits inside just one great big body whorl. They do still have the spiral on their shell, but it's flat. And their body just doesn't really sit in there. Remember, these guys are attached to their shell. Their shell is part of their external exoskeleton. Again, lots of examples, and when you guys play with the shell collection, you'll get to play with all these guys except for nudibranchs, because I don't have any nudibranchs because they're squishy. And these guys live in almost every habitat, freshwater, saltwater, and there are also land snails. In fact, there's some really big land snails in Africa. Okay, there's more videos. So many videos. This is a really cool group of animals. And then, of course, we have the shell-less gastropods, slugs, which we have here in Utah, and then nudibranchs. That's a banana slug. That's like that big. Wow. Nudibranchs are sea slugs that are super colorful and pretty. So when we looked at platyhelminthes and we looked at those marine flatworms, these guys look similar to that, except they're more meaty. So the planarians in the ocean are very thin, ribbony. These guys are a little more meaty, and they've got these external gills. Okay? And slugs, they are important. Everything is important in the ecosystem. These guys are just icky. They are able to function without a shell because they've got a really thick layer of mucus around the outside of their body, and sometimes that mucus is slightly toxic. Some nudibranchs in the ocean also steal the cnidocytes from jellyfish and corals and incorporate that into their own tissues, and they use the toxins as defense. Okay, crazy. Okay, so abalone, again, are big sea snails. There are several different species, but some of them can get quite large. And then they've got siphon holes all down one side of their shell. And there's a video about them because they're crazy. And there's African land snails. That's not even a huge one. I've seen them, pictures of them. They're like this big. People keep them as pets. I would. Oh, whoops. Oh, that's a video. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a video. All right. And finally, class Cephalopoda, the head-footed group of mollusks. Head, foot. Cephalo means head. Poda means foot. So these guys are the weirdos of this. I mean, this whole group is weird. But cephalopods have arms and tentacles that have suckers, which are you know what the suckers are. They're the little round discs that have hooks, adhesives. They have structures to capture prey. These guys are predators and sometimes very good apex predators even. Their radula is modified into a beak-like jaw, and so they can tear apart chunks of their prey. They also very often are venomous, especially octopus. So if you ever play with an octopus, some of them are quite deadly. They have a lot of venom. I can talk. I'm trying to hurry, and it makes my brain not run right. Okay, these guys, their siphon is used for all kinds of stuff, including their jet propulsion. They expel water out of their siphon, and it depends on what type of cephalopod they are, determines where their siphon is. Again, octopus, their siphon's usually kind of tucked right under their eyes. Squid, it's usually under their head. Same with the cuttlefish right there. And again, I'm sorry I didn't attribute my pictures. Sorry, internet. Please don't sue me. And then this is the only shelled one. I'll talk about them in just a sec. Oh, chromatophores. So, yeah, getting ahead of myself. So they have the siphon to expel water. They do also have ink. They produce a protein that will cloud the water so that they can confuse predators. They release a cloud of ink. You guys made me ink so that they could disappear with the jet propulsion. And then chromatophores, these guys in their skin, they have color changing cells in their skin, and it's crazy what they can do. They're not the only group of animals that have this, but they are the masters of it, these guys and chameleons. And these guys even do one better because they can also change texture, not just color, and they can also do patterns that move. I'll show you in a minute. All right, so these guys are put together backward. They're backward from how we think about our own natural proclivities to how a body should be put together, because we're like head, viscera, legs, right? So these guys are backwards. Their head is in the middle of their body. Their mantle cavity is this big round thing. That's actually where their visceral mass, all of their organs, reproductive organs, heart, everything is in this big mantle cavity. And then their head's in the middle, and then their foot is modified into 8 arms. So cephalopods, the octopuses, octopodes, octopi, don't remember how I say it. They are incredibly intelligent. Each of these arms has its own ganglia, its own brain that is not connected to their central brain, but these guys do exhibit higher order thinking. They solve problems, they use tools, and they play. They're super cool. Their body is completely soft. They have no internal or external shell. The only hard part about them is that beak, their radula. So these guys can squeeze through any opening that is the size of their beak. I'll find some videos on that. It's pretty cool. They can change color, they can change the pattern, and they can change skin textures as well. The movie that we watched, my octopus teacher, he talked about her growing horns on her eyes. So that's just skin and muscle, and they control that up, down, up, down. They're amazing. I love these. And then the another one is the squid. Squid do have an internal shell. It's very thin. It's called a pen, and that keeps their mantle cavity a little more stiff. So if you poke a squid in the mantle cavity, not in the head, but in the mantle cavity, you can kind of feel that. Oh, the bell's ringing. Okay, lunchtime. Here I go. I'll be back in a half hour. These guys have 8 arms, and they have 2 tentacles that have sticky ends that they use to grab prey and suck it in, pull it in. The chambered nautilus, oh, I have one of those shells and it's all the way over there, darn it. Chambered nautilus is what these are. These are deeper ocean dwelling. They do vertically migrate up and down in the ocean throughout the day and night. They closely resemble the ancestors of all cephalopods, which is an ammonite. I do have this one that was given to me by a very lovely, nice student. This is a fossil ammonite. A couple hundred million years ago. I also have a great big fossil one. They have the external shell, and then their body sits in just the very end cap, and they've got up to, I want to say, 90 tentacles. They don't have as much color changing ability as the others, but they do still, and they've got those big eyes and a big siphon. Okay, and then cuttlefish. These guys are crazy with the chromatophores. Cuttlefish also have an internal shell that's called a cuttle bone. It's over in the cabinet over there. Sorry, you guys. I'm falling down on my examples on the video. You just got to get over the quarantine and come to class. Okay? We stopped the COVID now. Thank you. Anyway, cuttlefish are amazing. Look what they can do. So look at this guy. Flashing. This hypnotizes their prey. Their prey doesn't know what to think about this. Their skin flashes in patterns. You can see it on this flamboyant cuttlefish down here in the corner as well. And he's also changed his texture. So he's grown these little horns all over his body. And they will actually put up their little middle tentacles when they're hunting. And then they walk on their arms. So they look like tiny ocean hippos. They're little, very cute. And then this is, I want to say it's a giant cuttlefish, but I could be wrong. It might be a common cuttlefish. But you can just see even their simplest color change where it goes from dark to light in an instant. And there were studies, people play with these guys in labs all the time. And you can put down a checkerboard and the cuttlefish will match itself to the checkerboard. And here's the really awesome thing. These guys can't even see color. Their eyes don't have color receptors as far as we can tell. So how do they know? How do they know what color things are? But they match colors perfectly. Green, red, yellow, purple, black. They can do a cloud. I mean, it's crazy. There's another video. You're welcome. Anything else? Okay. I think that's it for me. That's the mollusks. Make sure that you uploaded notes. If you are an online student, please upload your notes. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you are on quarantine, I'm very sorry. It looks like you're going to miss a lab. If you are choosing to stay home and you would like to join in the lab next week, please send me a message and let me know. The assignment that goes with this is the Mollusca characteristics reading and questions. Okay. So get that done, get it uploaded. You can also start on your Mollusca Prezi. The Mollusca Prezi has its own assignment description. I think that's it. Okay. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. Be good. Be safe. Be kind. Stay home. Wear your mask. Quit hanging out with people you don't live with. And keep a giant Pacific octopus between you and everyone else that you don't live with. Okay? See you later. Where's my pause button? There it is. Bye.